people a couple of minutes. Twitter Spaces is literally the worst platform of all time. You'd think that you'd think they'd figure this shit out by now, but obviously not.
I know. Yeah, as if I'm the voice of Web3nomads right now. By the way, carrying the team on my back.
Send it to zero.
Give me PTSD there, man. Bloody hell.
Mikey joining us or not? I'm just trying to find the spaces that are scheduled, and like even if you go into the Twitter Spaces portion of the app, it's you just can't find it.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? It's like we were saying earlier, unless you've tweeted it out and you can then like go back onto your profile and find it. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's terrible. You'd think like this is like one of the biggest drivers and like it's huge for engagement. I don't know what it's like across different niches of Twitter. Maybe it's a bit smaller over there.
Yeah.
So everyone uses it to pump their bags, don't they, in this space?
True, mate. True, bloody hell. It's going to be a fun battle in a heavy court.
Have you calmed down now? It's live.
Wouldn't say so. No, I'm only joking. It feels weird, doesn't it? It's like this week, like as if any startup would not go this way. But do you reckon this is one of the worst weeks we've had all year? Because I do. Just so
potentially. We were all going to fight each other a couple of days ago.
Oh, man. I'm glad we can laugh now, but I wasn't laughing on whatever day it was now.
Yeah, we'll give Mike a minute to get in. It's all recorded and we'll be sharing it across everywhere after anywhere. So
it's impossible to like time these things, isn't it? With like best engagement across the board when you've got UK, Asia, America, everywhere else. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, we're like spread across two parts of the world as well, aren't we? Between the four of us.
Yeah, exactly. Which I guess you got to make it work because that's what we're preaching.
It's definitely doable. It's just someone usually gets the short straw unless you line up well. But
yeah,
I mean, we figured it out pretty quickly though. Like
we did.
It's not too hard.
We have had a couple of 2 o'clock in the morning jobs, though, haven't we?
Yeah, but
over the last 12 months or so.
Yeah, like for the right opportunity, like the Arbitrum interview we did on like Blockmates podcast a couple of weeks back. Andrew was like, "Yeah, let's do it," and he sent me this time. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it."
You know what, mate? If you get up that time for the England game, you can get up for graphs, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. But no, there's been it's a funny one, isn't it? Because like you'll say you're leaving like a 9 to 5, but if you were going to work, if you were working these hours in a job you hated, you'd literally want to jump off a bridge. But
oh my god, yeah.
I always just say I wouldn't be putting in like double-digit hours every single day if it wasn't something you enjoyed doing. So
yeah, I know. But right, we've got Mike on, Dean's on, Ali's on, Cripstack.
Well, we'll just get going. It's recorded, as I say.
Yeah.
We've got the little twerp who's going to bring it down and put it on YouTube. He's probably listening. So yeah. So yeah, what's happening? So we're live.
We are live. Yes. For everyone listening, I'm speaking on behalf of the team that is very much me, Mike, Grant, and Ali. I'm Alex. Someone had to draw the short straw and join from the Web3nomads account, and we were hosting it on Blockmates for obvious reasons. But we are probably going to try and follow a bit of a loose plan here, and I say loose heavily, just generally about kind of how this idea came about. And Grant, you could probably lead it, can't you? What we want to do and what we are doing. Obviously, a little bit more about us, where we see the project going, and then we want to talk about some key features as well. So make sure you stick around to the end for this one, because we do have Dean on, who you can probably see and listening, who would dead keen to have chat to everyone about like how our mission critical tier is going to go, which I'm very excited about. We've got some really good people on board here, and we're just excited to get this project going, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. So I think I'll just kick it off. Like, it's one thing. Like, I think specializing in industry is always a good thing. Like, you kind of spread yourself too thin if you're like in a career that you don't necessarily feel quite passionate and strongly about. So, like, working on the more content media side all day every day, and speaking to projects and working with projects and doing all that kind of shit, it's like you end up coming across areas of the industry that you find could be a hell of a lot better. And I don't know if that's a crypto Web3 thing where we're still playing a little bit of catch up. Everyone's focused heavily in like financial products, NFTs, and all that kind of stuff, which is great. But then that can often lead to like key kind of infrastructure parts that get overlooked. So like, I work and travel on the go. It's kind of a joke, because like I live out in a really good part of the world and spend like 12 to 16 hours a day behind a laptop in my office, which is always hilarious. But we just came across like a couple of sticking points, particularly as Blockmates was beginning to scale it. And then the idea of kind of a job site, recruitment sites, social marketplace kind of site came up. And like, don't get me wrong, we're not saying like we're the first on the market or anything like that, but from what was out there, from like our own issues, which I always think is the best way to design a product, don't just like design a product because it looks good or it's like the flavor of the week or something like that. It's like, go out if you've got first-hand experience of what the issues are, and then try to set out to solve them. So that's kind of where the idea came from. But probably a step back from that, I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing. Just convinced like Mike and Al to go balls deep in this space and like forget everything they ever knew and all the tens of thousands of dollars in student debt that they were in from their traditional lines of work, and come like jump into this space. But obviously Al joined, you probably mark the top, to be honest, Al. So like, you're like a really bad omen for this space. But like, it's probably good to get your position of, because you're like the most recent to kind of go through the whole traditional transition to like this space. So it'd be kind of good to hear what your initial thoughts were, and like where you're at now. And obviously the turbulent times, but you literally couldn't have came in at a worse time. But I think you've had a good time despite that. But I think it's also good for people who are, there's a lot of people I know for a fine fact are considering the jump. And it might be best coming first hand from someone who's did it quite recently to kind of see how you navigated it. And I suppose that's what the site's all about as well. It's trying to help people transition over. It's not just going to be a landing page. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, well, it's bear with me, by the way, everyone. I am like battling a very, very heavy cold if I just start coughing and spluttering while I'm trying to get through this. But I am essentially, I guess, like the test tube baby of how Web3nomads came to be. And at the start of the year, I was looking for new work, and obviously myself, Grant, and Mike have been friends for like a long time going back. And not to give everyone my life story, but I have kind of been in marketing and communications, well, my whole career really, throughout all sorts. Kind of started off in professional sport, like worked in the Premier League, did the whole trail, like doing like pretty big global campaigns for Adidas on their global football account, and then went into craft beer and all kinds of things in fashion, and then somehow ended up in Web3, and I kind of stuck here. My initial impressions with it's just absolute madness, to be completely honest, but kind of in a good way. And I think that if you look at the year that we've all had, anyone who has worked in this industry or even is just a casual investor or has a passion for it on the side, I think that if you were thinking about like entry years, this would probably be up there with the worst that you could have probably had, not to be facetious and laugh at some very serious scandals we've seen this year. But we did also think that it was a perfect kind of opportunity, and it gave us the sight that there were a hell of a lot more people out there who just need to make the transition with the right transferable skills. And I know for a fact that Dean would back me up on this one, that just in the same way that Web2 needed to kind of go extra legs and sprout and kind of grow as an industry, we very much feel like Web3 is there now too. There's already a hell of a lot of talent in this, but we kind of are of the belief that it needs more talent incoming to continue to grow. And the only way that we're going to do that is if we try and open the gates and the floodgates up to those audiences and those kind of people who would never have thought of kind of stepping into this industry, that at some point we were all in that place. And those kind of people who we need to continue to come to the forefront, like good minds, people who are solid, hardworking, decent people. But we kind of thought, well, they need a place to go and they need somewhere that is going to be front and center where you can kind of log on and find a job like you would with LinkedIn, Indeed, insert any kind of retail friendly job site that we all know very well. And those sites work, they work for a reason. So we kind of thought, well, why can't we do that with crypto and Web3? And as Grant said, by no means are we saying we're the first to do this. We're obviously not. But what we want to try and do with this is kind of give it a little bit of personality and essentially give a face behind it as well and make it more content forward, because ultimately the end goal is for it to be less intimidating for people who would want to work in crypto, Web3, whatever you want to call it, but would have no idea where to start. And I think that the bottom line is everybody needs to start somewhere. And hopefully Web3 nomads will kind of be that place for people. And we can start connecting the dots and kind of essentially play our part in helping grow this space, because that's very much what it needs. And speaking from firsthand, I think that what I found myself is that as crazy as this space can be, because it is still very much in its infancy, if we're kind of looking at the big picture, it's also really, really exciting. And not many people that I've met that have transitioned from Web2 to Web3, taking these jumps from Amazon, Google, and those kind of companies. Not many people actually go back once you've landed here, and once you kind of learn how to navigate the choppy waters. You do tend to find that most people love it, and that's also despite the fact that everything I've just mentioned that we've all gone through this year, that have been connected to this space. And at risk of like kind of rambling anymore, that sort of is top and bottom my thoughts on why this thing exists, this website that we're all talking about today, and what we want it to service people for. Really, it's essentially a space that people are going to be able to find jobs. We remove any kind of barriers to entry as far as borders of employment and then all this kind of thing. We want employers and projects and companies to be able to come here and know that the right people are on Web3 nomads. And also fundamentally, we want to help grow the space, because if it doesn't continue to grow, then well, it'll just stall, won't it? And we all know that there's far too much potential here for that to happen. So, yeah, that's my input there, Grant. I hope I haven't spoken too long, mate.
No, that's good. Should we get into a couple of pain points that we've seen and a couple of features that we've implemented to fix that? I mean,
yeah,
we're in like Web3 nomads, or that's like remote.
Absolutely, you're breaking up ever so slightly.
Those lines. And oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, the name. Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. So the name was a funny one, and like we thought long and hard on it. Like, do we go crypto? Do we go Web3? And to be honest, both of them are a bit funny in my eyes. One gets a bad reaction from people who you tell on the street, and if you have to try and tell someone what you work as, if you first time met them, sometimes it can come off as a bit funny when you say it. And that's kind of some of the issues that we're trying to dispel with this whole platform. Like sometimes you shouldn't have to feel a little bit awkward if you're telling people that you work in crypto, particularly where I live. There's a lot of complete crypto bros that you can tell have just ran scam NFT projects, so like it comes with a bad connotation. So we're like, let's go a little bit more all encompassing all encompassing, put my teeth back in, and go with like Web3. But it's just like nomenclature, isn't it? It's just a name for it. And again, I think the idea was it's pretty good for search as well, to be honest. But there was a decision to be made on, do we go remote first or do we go like standard in-office job or hybrid? And I think my opinion on it was, which you probably shut off me telling you this a couple of times, was I think the pace of remote working or like hybrid or just like distant working is increasing so quickly it'll probably offset any completely office bound jobs. And that was my kind of idea around it. And I think that's only increasing. I think COVID definitely set that off with people being able to work anywhere. But now I think slowly but surely everywhere borders are open and it's become a lot more flexible. The infrastructure's been there available to do it. So we want to primarily focus on remote first. We do have hybrid roles, and you probably can list standard jobs, in-office jobs on there, but we want to kind of push that narrative as well.
100%, yeah. I'm just conscious to kind of introduce Mike and Ali as well. I know they're kind of sitting there in the background, and
they haven't done anything. Leave them out of it. They haven't worked hard at all.
You can fuck off.
Sorry,
no, it's not the way to go. So I guess I'm suffering from a cold as well, so I apologise. But yeah, I think this is very much like an MVP point of view that we're coming at this with. We see like the job site is just the start, really, don't we? I guess like my role in it is to be like, I guess the all seeing eye in operations of getting us through and getting to today, really, with Ali as well, and we've had our moments, I guess, and he's probably thinking, God, I can't wait to get away from these lot after building the site. But unfortunately,
definitely not.
But unfortunately, yeah, this is just the start. I guess when you talk about pain points, Grant, we have seen that people don't always have the capability on the back end in terms of managing the candidates that come through in terms of an application tracking scheme. So these are areas where we see at the moment where we can start to, once we get this off the ground, and we have bootstrapped this ourselves, that once we've got the ball rolling, essentially, and we can start to explore some of these pain points. Another one in terms of like onboarding, we very much see in the space that these are a few courses of people being able to pick a few things up in DeFi to be able to transition from Web 2 to Web 3, but really the practical skills come from doing, I think, and that's how I learned. Making a few mistakes along the way, as you can imagine, but I think there needs to be more out there to help people on board. So I guess Blockmates is aligned with that in terms of what they're trying to teach people from the ground up, in terms of from everything simple, like, well, I say simple, tokenomics, etc., where you don't get that easily, and I don't think there's that much resource available that's too prominent in the space. So again, Web3 nomads really aligns with like Blockmates ethos in terms of like teaching people. And I think the only thing we have a different view in terms of the project and what we want to really push, especially in terms of the angle of telling companies stories, is what we see in the space. What we see in the space really is we see a lot about projects and the technicality of the projects and how the projects are developing, but what we don't see is like the people, the talents, and really like the culture behind these projects. And again, as part of some of the features that we want to push, we want to fill that gap in the space in terms of content that we produce to let people know that about these real people. And I think that's where we're at.
Mike kind of comes from an engineering background and has also somehow found his way into this weird and wonderful space. So do you just want to kind of take the floor for a sec, Mike, and tell people about how you are here as well?
Yeah, apologies. I've got a tendency to skip ahead. Yeah, I guess like, unfortunately, I've been mates with Granty for God knows how many years, and have folded him into battle many a time, and it's still happening now. And I guess that's where this year I landed here as well. Made the jump to essentially leave engineering. Not that I didn't enjoy it. I like solving stuff, processes, getting my fingers dirty, and I'm quite good at it. But I do it in a lot different sense. So even building this project out, I've learned a hell of a lot that essentially is miles outside of my realm in terms of my day to day over the past 5 years. But it's very much transferable again. Processes like chemical engineering is just logic and applying that logic. So for me, I haven't found the transition too hard. Like again, every day is a learning experience, especially some of the areas that these lads delve into, like the marketing side, content side. That's where like Al and Block and Ali have all taught me like a hell of a lot. And I think that's such a good and valuable thing about the space is there is so much to learn and like different like cross skills to pick up where you can find yourself in, I guess, again, like one job, but there's a million things that you could be doing. And I think this is where it's like doors open and not close, which I've found this year, really. So yeah, that's about.
Yeah. I think what I wanted to kind of touch on as well is where we see hopefully this site and product or business company, whatever you want to call it, like where we see it going. And Mike, you obviously touched on it from an MVP point of view and making sure that we had a solid kind of working, fundamentally job site platform, whatever it is you want to call it. And Ali and his team at Cryptstack have done a phenomenal job, which I hope everyone would agree, who's already seen the site at kind of building that out for us. Just a nice thumbs down for you there from Grant, Ali. But ultimately, we did want to kind of offer a point of difference as well. And what we have realised, even out of the gates, we wanted to make sure that there were the three tiers, which you'll see if you spend a bit of time kind of digging into the site. And obviously, we'll be pumping out a load more educational content about how the product works. But we are also very well aware that whether anyone wants to admit it or not, when companies and projects and anything have a requirement for roles that are particularly senior or have require a certain amount of experience, it never ever hurts to have a recruitment person in your corner. But what we also wanted to do with this was make sure that we had the right person in our corner, and at risk of not pumping his tires up too much, that's why we were so excited that Dean decided to kind of take us up on kind of partnering with us out the gate as far as our mission critical tier is concerned, which basically is tied to the premium tier, which I'm not going to go too much into the intricacies of the product because I probably would bore people with that. But I did want to kind of have Dean come on and just introduce himself as well, because I'm also keen to get Dean's thoughts on, you know, his own background and why he feels that now is the right time to kind of ramp up the recruitment and see more people flood to Web3, because he himself has also been in this game for a long time and in the regular recruitment game. But do you want to kind of just request to speak, Dean, and you can jump in and tell us a bit about how you're going to be involved with Web3 Nomads and what you think for the space going forward?
You'll have to request.
There we go. There you are, man. It's just connecting.
Hey, boys. How you doing?
All good, all good.
Can you hear me okay?
Right,
Yep.
You are on, man.
Excellent. Well,
Hey, Dean,
congrats again. Sounds like you had a hell of a week getting it up.
Yeah. We did.
Luckily, you're all working remotely, so you couldn't, stab each other in the throat or anything like that.
Oh, man, honestly.
Well, no,
tell me about it. But
yeah, go for it.
So I was just going to say, do you want to take the floor, mate? Obviously, I've kind of touched briefly about the mission critical tier. Again, it kind of is very, very straightforward, basically, for companies, projects, businesses, whatever we want to call it, that want a premium role for those kind of higher level candidates, I guess I'll call them. You can have the mission critical, which is where Dean comes in, who is, you probably wouldn't want to admit it himself, but one of the best recruiters, I think, in this space. His kind of experience speaks for itself. But I wanted you to just talk about how you ended up here as well, Dean, and like, again, why you think something like Web3 Nomads now is going to be so important going forward, basically.
Yeah, no problem. And look, I've simplified what a mission critical role is, and it's a role that's an essential piece of the talent jigsaw puzzle that clients and companies and hiring managers are trying to solve. So that kind of ties into what it is and where we can add value. For myself, I've been recruiting now for 20 years. Sadly, feel old every time I say that these days. Still got a brain of a 25-year-old, but a body of a 60-year-old. So, but yeah, previously 6 countries, 15 years with the one recruitment firm. Started as a junior, worked my way up into managing director of their Hong Kong and South China region. But 2017 got into the Web3 space. Have loved the ride. Watched portfolio 10x and then disappear over the following months, not having a clue what to do. But then last year, I guess, I started to see a little bit more of a change, a little bit more maturity. And, leading into this year, before all the, sort of black swan events, I could see that the time to launch a specialist Web3 recruitment firm is now. There's not really, from what I can tell, an undisputed leader in the Web3 recruitment space globally. So I see a window of opportunity there. I think, as I said, the industry's matured. So there's a lot more people working in Web3 that need opportunities. And there's obviously a lot more people that want to get in. And, crypto winter, I know it's counterintuitive, but it is an awesome time to build. It's when the biggest companies are built, and the biggest companies will come out the back end of this and thrive.
Yeah, I think, like, even what you said there, Dean, that word is such an important one, that like the industry has matured. And by the way, I think there's a lot more maturing that needs to happen, but it's in a hell of a lot more of a better place than, say, even when Grant stepped into it. And I think Grant would be able to speak a hell of a lot more better than I can on that. But that's such an important way of looking at it, that like it's time that people did start taking this industry seriously from the outside looking in, which I think has probably not been the case for too long, which is kind of the gap that, not to speak for the team, that we're trying to bridge with this whole thing and make and legitimize these jobs in crypto and Web3 for people who are at the Amazons and the Googles and all this kind of thing, realize and recognize that they can slot right in to this industry, I suppose.
For sure. And look, I mean, I saw, our tagline is building the new world of work. And I saw this comment from the LinkedIn CEO. Pre-pandemic, 1% of all the jobs posted on LinkedIn were remote. As of today, 14% are now remote. But the really interesting part of that, which is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it, is that north of 50% of all job applications on a daily basis on LinkedIn go to that 14% of remote jobs. So wow. There's a real snapshot into the change that's happening, and where the remote piece is coming. But then going back to your point, the traditional talent, they're I'm convinced they're probably looking for remote jobs now, and being that bridge to help them understand that Web3 is just a buzzword, really. And if you're committed, you can get into the industry for sure.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in now? Yeah, so
go for it.
So there was a couple of like really, really big transitional hires. Like Polygon got like head of gaming at YouTube, I believe, to come over, and like you just saw a couple of those happen. Yes, they're at the height of a bear market, and it's obviously really opportune moments for those kind of things to happen. And obviously those kind of things naturally happen when everything's all happy and hunky dory and stuff like that. But I suppose, like, from obviously we've done our research on it, but from anyone who's listening, Dean, what are the type of roles on the market currently, and which is it more technical focused? Is it more kind of BD marketing focused? Because I think the point we were trying to get at is, one, anyone with transferable skills is highly competent in any role, can definitely make the transition. But two, that's not to neglect and not to say that we won't be seriously putting a real big spotlight on people who are already native to the industry and actually just want to kind of go into the next job or go into like one of the top 10 companies or something like that. So what are you seeing from like a listing process, a hiring process at the minute with regards to where is there like a real talent shortage?
Yeah, look, I mean, tech's tech, right? There's just not enough people to go around. And again, this is probably an old statistic, but it's one that I can remember reading pretty recently. And I think there's something like 18,000 Solidity devs globally and 3 million iOS developers, just as a comparison, right? So shows how early days it is. So for me, it doesn't matter what the market's doing. I think tech recruitment and tech hiring is going to be there. You know, granted, there's a lot more people hitting the market, but I still think there's just not enough in the Web3 space to go around, so that the hiring will be constant. Surprisingly, and this is kind of, again, counterintuitive to a bear market, but marketing has still seen quite a lot of demand. There seems to be a real talent shortage in the marketing space, and like, to your point, I think I have a lot of clients. They have what's called the MetaMask test, which is, you know, literally part of the screening process is, have you installed MetaMask and have you used MetaMask? And that's almost a tick of, if they say yes, okay, you know, you've got a shot. That's how, you know, open clients are if it's a top talent type person. You know, obviously then they're saying after they onboard them, they're going to try and, you know, upskill them and educate them and all that sort of thing. So it's been quite interesting, but yeah, probably tech and marketing are the two spaces that have been constant. I mean, I see a lot of BD roles, but then I talk to these clients and they get like 300 applications. So it's pretty intense in that space. And you know, I spoke to one client that actually went through every single application, and out of the 300, he said 200 were worth an interview. So it's pretty damn competitive.
Wow, yeah, it's pretty mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we're hoping for here, and even why it's so important listening to Dean, is that this site, and I'm probably at risk of repeating myself here, is I would like to think going to be the one to lead the way in connecting the dots between everything Dean just said and all of us that are already in and around this industry. Again, out of the gates, there are others doing it as well. We just want to kind of ramp it up a notch. And I wanted to talk very briefly about like some of the other, not features, but offerings that we wanted to bring to the table. So we are going to be starting a podcast as well that, for better or worse, Grant and me are going to be hosting, where we'll have people like Dean on and kind of other people who work in and around the industry, but we're going to focus it more on their own stories and how they ended up here as well, because I think that's kind of going to be the most important thing here, to try and convince and bring people on board to get more people to consider a role within this industry. And again, I've already said this, but we've just wanted it to be a little bit less intimidating in general, because it is so young and we're kind of lucky to all be here already at this stage, but it's only going to get bigger and grow more if we all push it in the same direction, which is hopefully what Web3nomads is going to be for everyone.
Yeah, there's another point on with regards to content. Obviously, I'm a hammer, so everything I see is a nail with regards to kind of content and strategy and all that kind of stuff. So the one of the real things that stood out a lot to us when we were going through like the initial ideas and the build and competitor research and if you can even call it that and all that kind of stuff, was a lot of these sites are so heavily automated. it felt to me like you can just pick up on like an atmosphere or a vibe about stuff, and you just know that there's people who've came into the space. They've seen what works in like a traditional landscape, Web2, whatever you want to call it. Slapped like the Web3 brand and the whole shebang on top of it, and then automated the death out of it. And it just there's a lot of projects that, not to shit on them because they're doing a good job, but it feels like a lot of it's just completely soulless, and it doesn't really feel like there's many who are building this kind of product from within inside the industry. It feels like people have seen like an opportunity and being a little bit opportunistic and just revamp the site. And as I say, from the content perspective, what I'm trying to get at is projects that are listed on there that that are coming through. We're seeing the listings, and we think, well, we can do a bit of project spotlight in here. We can do like content around the job itself. We do content around what the like working environment's like, what's it like to work here, get the kind of project founders, the builders, all these kind of people on. And just to make it a little bit more personable, as I say, we don't want it to just be a landing page where you go and pay like stupid amounts, or like one of the job sites that we were looking at was, it looked all great, and then we went through to the payments page, and it was like, well, if you want a logo on here, you're gonna have to pay an extra $50, and if you want like an email sent out, you're gonna have to pay this, and if you want content pushing out, then you're gonna have to pay this. It was just like, oh my god. So by the time you add it up, it's just like you feel like ripped off by the time you've even went out to the checkout page. So I think we know this industry enough from working it day in, day out. It's like what shit sticks and what doesn't. So it's like just really being kind of playing the whole crypto etiquette game and just acting as the way you'd like to be treated yourself. So that's everything we're going to do. It resonates everything we do with Blockmates as well. So it's very well within our nature to like roll products out like that. So yeah, it's not just going to be like we're here just to be a basic advertising platform. We want to kind of showcase everything that comes to our site. It's like, so you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. So I just wanted to point that out because we had comments in the building phase and from people who list on other sites and stuff like that. And it's I just thought that was like a really important point to get out there.
Yeah. One thing I did want to kind of make a point on while we're on Spaces is we are actually launching with the site an affiliate scheme as well, where you can essentially become an ambassador for Web3 Nomads, which if you kind of hit us up or just send us a DMs or whatever, we have a full business development deck that we can hand over to anyone interested, where you can essentially just earn money to recommend us to projects and companies that you think might be hiring or might want to list on our site. So if you want more info on that, please don't hesitate. We're on direct messaging. It's very self-explanatory, and we'll be happy to kind of engage and support you in that. And then I did want to just kind of jump over to Ali for a sec, who you can probably see on the call, which we maybe should have kind of started here, given what we've put him through over the last few months. But Ali, as I've said now, built the site for us with his agency Cryptstack. I cannot speak highly enough of the service that we've had. I'd be lying if I said we hadn't put all of us through the ringer. There's a little bit on our story page where on Mike's bio where we said we've tested his patience, but now on the day that we've launched, I think it would be foolish for me to say that anyone's had the patience tested more than Ali. So I did just want to kind of have you, jump on for a sec, Ali, and talk about Cryptstack and even yourself, man. How have you found kind of transitioning into this industry and building websites and to such a high standard that you're quite clearly capable of?
He also doubles up as a therapist and marriage counselor.
No, I mean, honestly, when Grant sort of approached me with this idea, to say it was sort of a blank canvas would be somewhat of an understatement. It was kind of, this is what we're thinking, kind of run with it and let's see what comes back with. So it's a fantastic thing that we're doing, sort of contributing to the overall sort of Web3 industry as a whole. And I think one of the sort of key messages we tried to get across with this site was obviously the simplicity and making it accessible to all. And I think that's something that from my side, I can definitely relate with, sort of working in Web2 originally and then now transitioning over into Web3. But honestly, I've never worked with a team that puts so much care into every detail. So it was very much a team effort to get the site over the line. And I'm really happy with sort of what we produced here. So yeah, it's been a really good fun project to work with.
Thank you, man. And, you know, just a little bit of a shameless plug here, but if anybody does have any requirements or sites that you need looking at from a brand point of view, anything like Ali is your guy. I think I can speak for us all that he, you know, he'll be able to help you out, and just start that conversation with him over on Twitter. You can see him here dwelling in the space. I think that to kind of not make sure that we don't keep on for too long. If anyone has like any immediate questions for us while we're all on here, I'm not sure whether there would be. I just wanted to know if anyone wanted to ping anything at us, and before we kind of wrap this thing up. So yeah, if you wanted to just like raise your hand, unless there's anything you want to add, Grant, Mike, Ali, Dean, anyone else, before we kind of move on.
Yeah, I think like obviously waiting if anyone wants to jump up, but I suppose as Mike was saying earlier, we've went to launch with like an MVP, just like the minimum viable product. It works, battle tested, should be as good as we hope it'll be. But the idea again, it's like not just to sit on it, not just let it turn into like a landing page and, you know, everything I've previously said. But there are a few gaps which Dean certainly helped with. So there's conversations prior to actually building it all out were really, really informative. So the areas that we kind of indicated, which Dean touched upon in this chat actually, was that bridging gap. Is one, I think it's a confidence issue. Two, I think it's kind of just an overall understanding issue and like operator issue. So the people that probably applying for these jobs and thinking, well, you're always going to get chances, right? Like Dean said, the 300 applicants for a BD job. But then there's also going to be people that probably do have transferable skills, but they just need that little bit of edge. They need the MetaMask test. They need like the basic fundamentals test, like particularly if you're navigating on chain and things like that. So I think not to get too ahead of ourselves because we're at launch, but we do want to help facilitate that in a much better way with like a kind of learn product, like an interactive learn product where if people complete the course, they can get kind of a certification from us to kind of put through on their application, stuff like that. And coming from with Blockmates being like primarily an education platform and content platform, I think there was just a really happy kind of middle ground in the Venn diagram between Nomads and Blockmates there. So we will be rolling that out. We certainly want to cater for the applicant side as well. Ali's told us this will be a big build, so we'll probably be doing his head in for another couple of more months on this. But we also don't just want jobs on there. We want people to be like putting up their own profiles, what they want, and then if you're kind of searching for a candidate as opposed to posting a candidate, you can go in there and try and find your hire effectively, like in reverse. And then Dean also brought up the fact that with the 300 BD applications and stuff like that, we know that's a complete nightmare for whoever's on the receiving end. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be like a lot of applications for the Blockmates role that we posted up for the research analyst thing. And that's all well and good that people are getting candidates, but it must be a complete pain in the arse to sift through and actually like find and actually locate the talent within that pool who's applied to actually pick out the right hire. And if you get too many, you might just get completely inundated and it just turns to complete shit and you just think it's a complete waste of time. And that's some of the feedback we've heard from people we pitched this to as well. And Dean was like very open about this as well. It kind of steered us in the right direction with regards to it. It's not going to be rolled out now, but we're really wanting to build some crypto native kind of CRM applicant tracking system that if you're applying for a load of jobs, we'd have something on the back end that would effectively filter through all the best jobs and the best candidates. So you actually could get a report at the end of the week or the end of the day, however frequent you wanted it, where you don't have to look through all 300 jobs. You've probably got the top 10% there or the top 5% that you can actually fizzle through. So that part of the job site hiring process is completely fucked, to put it politely. People have to use their own applicant tracking softwares and things like that and sign up. So you're going through, and it just creates multiple sources of friction And no, and let's be completely honest, even from my perspective, nobody wants to go and have to go through an arduous process to get a job listing up there. That's why we've made the site as like frictionless as physically possible. We will probably run a campaign like on how quickly you can actually list a job, and if you're coming back to list another job after you've already got a account on the site, it's going to take seconds. And so we're just trying to kind of navigate this whole landscape. We learned a lot from the actual build itself, seeing problems that people aren't necessarily fixing, which is strange. But yeah, it's just a bit more of like a roadmap. But yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's MVP, and I think we'll probably send Ali over the edge if he hears all this kind of stuff that's coming out of the woodwork now.
Yeah.
Hey, Grant, I was just going to say, I think you're on the right track there, because like when you mentioned earlier about the storytelling piece, if I think about, those applicants in the BD example, and there's 300 apply and 200 worth an interview, but reality is only one's going to get the job. Of those 300 that applied, if there was a story behind that company, it wouldn't shock me if the applicants halved, right? Because once you read the story, it's either for you or not for you. So I think, talking about adding comments from the founders and everything, like I think you're absolutely on the right point. I know it'll take time, but I think you're on the right track there.
Okay, cool. Well, I don't think that we've had anyone kind of ping any questions in. We will be getting the whole space is back up on Spotify, published out. Obviously, we've launched today, and as I've said, it's been a week for more reasons than one. But no, genuinely, thank you to everyone that has joined in to this, even just for 2 minutes, and skipped back off, and everyone who's followed and kind of shown a little bit of support over the last hour and a half since we started actually communicating. It's very, very much appreciated. And again, yeah, we are going to be super, super active on everything you can possibly think of. So just send us a DM, tweet us direct if you want, and anything you want, we'll kind of be there for it. And as I've said, we do have a full business development deck. So if you just kind of hit up the inbox, I'm happy to ping that over to anyone that wants it. But other than that, I think we'll draw it to a close there, fellas.
We've got Joe. Joe's just popped up. If he wants the floor's yours.
Go for it. You are on mute, Joe, if that's you speaking now, man.
Oh no, technical issues.
All right. Yeah.
There we go.
Good afternoon. Yeah. Good afternoon. Yeah. Good afternoon.
How's it going?
From
Hey,
Surrey.
Joe.
Yeah, I'm calling from Nigeria actually. So I just want to ask a question.
Yep.
Can I go on?
Don't know whether we've lost you there, Joe. Go on.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you hear me?
I think we can, man. If you just keep
Okay,
talking,
okay.
we'll get to it. If not, we're just gonna have to cut it there.
So I want to ask, what is Web3nomads jobs all about? Like, I just want to get a better view of what the service is the services or the service you guys are offering.
Well, I think it sounds to me like you've joined late. So what we'll probably do is we will post the link up from the spaces, and if you listen to this back from the outset, you will get a full overview, my friend, about what the site is and all of the entire offering. And better than that, if you jump onto our Twitter account at Web3nomads jobs, just have a watch of the video that we've pinned to the top of the profile, which kind of will give you an overall snapshot in a little over 60 seconds of your time. But I think that's probably an appropriate place to end it. You good with that, Grant? Mike, everyone else?
Yeah, all
Hey,
good for
good.
me.
I think the only thing is, if you do have feedback for the website, we do have a spot on the Blockmates Discord. So if you want to jump in there and give us any feedback, chat in there, I'm always about in the Blockmates Discord. and that's what we're going to aim to do, and we'll be reaching out to any businesses as well who do post on the site to give us feedback to continually improve. And that's about it, from me.
Such a product thing to say, going off for a feedback already. Yeah, but thanks everyone. We'll make sure it's shared. Everyone should see it over the next couple of hours. All the spaces are recorded, but we will snip it all together, put it on Spotify, YouTube, and all the good stuff as well. So yeah, thanks again, and thanks for all the support and all the engagement and all that kind of stuff. It means a lot after a difficult week, to say the least.
A very difficult week. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, guys.